All right, it's the next day. I didn't have a camera here all morning because I took them home to charge all the batteries and to download footage last night. And I forgot to bring it back this morning. So instead of running home and getting the cameras and stuff, I just got to work. So the big cab now has the same hole in it as the regular cab had, the single cab. And I've got the panel out of the single cab. It's all prepped. This just looks like bare metal because I had silver spray paint open and going, so that's what I used. I just used the Krylon Tough Coat rust barrier. I've used all of the weld through primers and stuff in the past, but they're not the greatest paint. Seems like they don't have a great shelf life, and a lot of times when you buy them, they'll spray and then they'll sputter and they'll quit, and you have a whole can of paint that you can't get out of the can. So I just started using regular spray paint because the other stuff's expensive and it doesn't work, and I don't care to pay for that. I got my hammer and vice grips and everything ready to weld this panel in, but I need a dolly to straighten some of these flanges out a little bit. I got to cut that hole for the gear shift, and I got to get rid of that saddle off the frame, and then I can set the cab on. I don't have a lot of faith as far as me getting that done yet today. That's a fairly substantial amount of work. I do believe that putting this panel in is going to go fairly quick. Down here in this corner here, I'm going to say that it wasn't 100% my fault. I think there was just a little bit of variation in this triangle here, and so I have a little bit of a pie shape to fill. I will say that I had planned on cutting this cab a little long so I could trim it to fit, and for the most part it's like right on. That took about 10 minutes. Here's what I'm always telling you. This insulation from the mouse playpen there caught on fire. Burning pretty good. I have got this side all spotted in. I got the bottom spotted in. And I got all up this side here all welded. I still have that little pie slice to do. This top up here is kind of gapping a little bit. A lot of that is because when I pried up against the cowling here to get that to come down, it kind of bowed it up. Got the windshield wiper motor still in this cab. Probably going to swap it out for the one that was in the other cab anyway. So I'm going to pull that out so that I can hammer the cowling back down where it belongs, just get that little belly out of it. And then I've got this double plate in here that I got to get moved up there tight and get it spot welded. But it's coming along. That really went smooth. I'm glad I went the route that I did. That's going to make mounting everything to this cab so much easier, because it's going to be, this corner of the cab is going to be the old cab. I know everything's going to fit perfect. I had no issues burning through or nothing. That I just did one spot right after the other all the way down, and I think I had one little spot that got a little hot and wanted to pop on me, so I had to give it a couple seconds to cool off. But other than that, it was just rat-a-tat-tat, went right along and so smooth, and I'm impressed. I have some spots over here that are showing light. That's where I drilled through when I took this piece out of the old cab, the piece that's up here that everything attaches to. So I can come back in from the inside now and I can hit all of those spots that were holes, and then I'll just be spot welded from both sides. It actually makes it that much stronger because there'll be that many more welds. So I'll grab a 10mm and I'll jerk that windshield wiper apparatus out of the cowling, and I'll get that all knocked down, and I'm going to spot it from the top and I'm going to spot it from underneath, because up here in the cowling that'll fill with rainwater and snow and everything, and I don't want those holes running into the cab, and I just don't want them there, period, because they weren't there before. So that's what I'm up to. I've got maybe 10 more spots to do. Then I'm going to punch that hole in there for the shifter. So this cab will be ready to go on, and then I just have to get the frame up and ready to go. It is windier than ever living heck outside. I don't know if I want to swing this big cab out in the wind. I think it's blowing 40 gusts to 50 or something. It's ridiculous. This might be all the farther I get today, but we'll see. Keep watching. All right, I'm going to bring you back for a little bit of tips and tricks here. In everything that I build, you're going to see me using ratchet straps to hold stuff, move stuff. They're probably one of the handiest things in the shop that everybody overlooks. That second plate is tipped back, so I couldn't get the spot welds on. So I have this ratchet strap. It's tied to the back of the frame, goes through the hole in the firewall. I don't have a clamp that I could reach around and clamp it, and my port of power, the cylinder, the pushing cylinder, is over at one of my other shops. So I have my snap-on pry bar. The tip of it is wedged in here, and that ratchet strap is wrapped around the shaft, and I've got it pretty tight, and you can see now everything's up tight against the firewall there and ready to spot. So just a second set of hands while I'm here by myself, and it works really well, and you can get it to where it's under tension, and then you can come in here and tap that with a hammer to where everything can move around, and it just eats up that load that you already have under, is the pre-tension. So you're not, trying to adjust anything or anything like that. Just the load that you already have on that strap is pulling that slack for you. Works really good. So I'm going to weld that double plate in. That's the only thing I have left to weld there. It's coming together. So underneath here in the transmission tunnel, this great big hole is not in the other cab, and it's all body clips. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this one out, and I'll lay it over the other one and mark it all out, and then I'll cut that big hole with my body saw and drill all the holes for the mounting holes for that boot, so that I have this hole in that cab for when it goes on. Really, to get the big cab set on, I got to weld that big chunk into it. I got to knock a hole for this shifter. Got to go in there, pull that saddle off, and once I get the hole and everything in here, you can see this doesn't have a hole. Should be right there, but we'll get that cut in there. Then we can spin this cab around, set it on, and then it'll just be a matter of putting the 07 dash and stuff in it and putting it all back together. I'll get it running. I want to put a 2-speed rear end in it, and I need to get some takeoff tires to put on it, just to get it to where you can sit in it, because right now the tires are so bad that it'll like knock all the fillings out of your teeth. It rides so rough. It'll literally just make you irate and just tick you off just sitting in it. So can't believe that we drove it clear across the state of Wyoming, but we did. All right, look at this. I drew a toilet seat. See it? This actually worked out pretty good. I was wondering how I was gonna draw my template for cutting this hole in the other cab, And lo and behold, that hole right there for the e-brake was perfect for me to get my hand up under there and hold the cardboard while I traced it with the other hand. Of course, I couldn't do it with the camera in my hand, but I think this is fairly centered. It's not, it's over to the passenger side when you figure all this in. But I think these two humps are in the other cab as well. That's this center bolt there is right in line with that hump. So I'm guessing that that'll be pretty easy to go off of. I have to cut this tin plate out and then I will lay it up on here. Yeah, see, these two humps are in there. So I'll be able to just cut that right out. Bet you thought I forgot about the Nerf bar. I didn't, but the way the cab is sitting, the mounts are below the frame rail. So I'm gonna pick that up and then I'll set the Nerf bar where it goes and I'll run a piece of metal across the frame there and that'll hold the bottoms up where they belong while I weld the center there where that plate mounts to the firewall. So that'll make that pretty easy. Alrighty, I got my toilet seat. In order to locate it, I just included that in my pattern and then I'll have to recut it. But as you can see, I cut these two notches in it and then it just matches. So I'll be able to take this over to the other cab and just set this on those two humps. Then I can trace out the back portion of it on there. And then once I get that line on there, then I'll trim the rest of my pattern out. And then I can lay the pattern on my mark and mark the rest of it out. So it'll just go on there like that. I'll just trace it and then I'll have that good to cut out. I got the bar that runs from mount to mount. I jacked the cab up and put that piece of wood in there. I got a weld, do the rosebuds on that plate. The wind is blowing twice as hard today as it was yesterday. If I get this cab ready to go on, it's not going to be a great day to do it. I got a new sweatshirt that I got for my birthday and I'll have to change that out and put something else on because I don't ruin it. I'll try to keep it nice at least for a little bit, and here in the shop is not a good place to keep it looking nice. So if you guys are wondering about the boat, the seats up, over on Slim's Fury there will be a video coming up about that. Second weekend of July we took it to Flaming Gorge and needed some repairs ever since, but that'll be over there on his channel, on my son's channel, Slim's Fury. It's not up yet, but maybe he's going to be here this weekend and maybe I can get him to finish putting the out drive and everything back on it. Kind of get that little video series done so we can post it. It was, I don't know, the video is kind of funny, but luckily what happened to it, it didn't destroy anything. We had to tear it all apart and figure out what was wrong with it and whatnot, but kind of cut our going to the lake short this last summer. So I'm gonna get back to welding on that support pipe, and I'll get this saddle cut off here this morning, and I'll get the hole cut in the floorboard. At that point, I think that cab's ready to go on. I'll probably just try and put it on there with the tractor. I'll couple her up tight to where the wind can't blow it around too much, and I'm going to put some vice grips. I already put one pair on the steering box. I guess I took them off, but the steering box here, I'll put a pair of vice grips on it that go from the input to the frame, and then down, another one down to this hose to keep the steering straight. I'll just go straight back with it and straight back in. This last time I didn't do that, and going back, the steering turned to the drivers and kind of swung out weird, and then when I was bringing it back in, then it went passenger, so it was going to run over everything on the right hand side over here, and so I ended up putting the steering shaft and the steering wheel on it and fighting with it manually, because of course no power steering, so it wasn't running. And I did get it back in here, but you remember we took out the heater box and stuff. That wasn't really a steering issue, but I'll lock that box up. It's only about 43 degrees out, so the quicker going out and back in, the better. Keep the old core temperature up a little bit. All right, I'm back to work. Enough talking. All right, I'm bringing back. Come look at this. I cut my toilet seat out up here. I used kind of the thinner blade in my body saw, and just it went smooth as silk. And then I came over here and I cut the press rivets out of the cross member here, and got them cut, and I got them punched through to the point where I thought that saddle had come up out of there, but it was still really stuck. So I ended up with the floor jack and a piece of square tubing up under it, and I jacked that up to where I had some good tension on it, and then I took my air hammer and I hit the end of the rivet that was sticking out with the air hammer and got them jiggled out to where it cleared this piece of metal. I'm gonna have to put bolts back through there because there's an L bracket from the frame over to that cross member where they were, I think they were just beefed up for this saddle, but I'll bolt them back together to where it's got that little bit more strength to it. Get this floor jack out of there. I've got one rivet that it's tough to get to, and it just does not want to come out of there. I had that load, I just put kind of a light load on it, so that when I was hitting them, as they would work out, it had tension against it, so it would hold out on them, so that they would actually work out in the right direction. But now that I've got this out here like this, it's moved over like that. So imagine that it's got this rivet over here in a pretty good bind. I'll have to figure out a way to knock it out, and then this saddle will be gone. That's the last thing that I have to do before the cab is ready to go back on.